Thank you for the introduction. Today, I'm going to speak on the need for science-based regulations for smoke-free products or SFPs. Let me begin by giving you a bit of context and background. The global picture on regulations for SFPs remains very mixed. Many countries are still struggling with developing appropriate regulations. If you just take the example of electronic cigarettes or vaping products, for example, you will see in this figure that some countries in green allow these vaping products, the countries in red ban these products, and in many countries, actually in blue, we have no information. So it's a very mixed kind of picture. The important question, though, is how should such regulations be developed? I mean, many factors are to be considered, but in my view, at least, such regulations must, in the first instance, be based on the science and evidence around SFPs or smoke-free products. So, what does the science actually tell us about these products? Firstly, about the risk. It is quite strong conclusive evidence that these products are 90 to 95% less harmful than combustible cigarettes. Whether you're talking about e-cigarettes or heated tobacco products, compared to cigarettes or cigars or pipes, they are much less harmful in the context of the risk of the release of toxic chemicals. What is the evidence with the perception of risk? This evidence is a little bit worrying because, as you can see, a lot of people over many years think that these products are equally harmful compared to cigarettes. Some are actually thinking that these products are more harmful, the red graph. And more worrying is those people who think that they are less harmful in green, the percentage is actually falling. So that's the evidence about risk perception, which means we need to really work to overcome these perceptions about harm. What is the evidence about efficacy? This is from a randomized trial of electronic cigarettes, and the evidence is quite strong that people who use e-cigarettes to quit were twice as likely to succeed as people who used other traditional nicotine replacement products such as patches or gum. And Public Health England has done many studies to show that about 20 to 40,000 people quit every year in the UK. They quit smoking through the use of electronic cigarettes. So that's the efficacy for quitting. That's the evidence for efficacy of these products. What about the impact? And this is data from Japan on sales of heated tobacco products. You can see here, if you look at the bottom trends, these are increasing sales of these heated tobacco products. What is important to note is that this increase in sales is accompanied by a very dramatic drop, 32% drop in the sale volume of combustible cigarettes. So that's the impact. These products are having an impact on the number of cigarettes that are being sold. Another way of looking at impact is this data from the UK. And you can see here, this is percentage of the adult population who are smokers. You can see that the percentage is coming down as the percentage of those who vape are going up. Okay, so once again showing that electronic cigarettes in this case are having an impact in terms of the number of people who are smoking. What is the evidence on the well-known gateway effect? Now, this is the idea that if young people start vaping, they will eventually become smokers. Now, the evidence in this field is a little bit more uncertain, a little bit controversial, but in overall terms, I personally don't see good evidence that taking up vaping will then end up with these young people becoming smokers. And this graph shows you sort of an indirect indication of that, because it shows you in the blue line that as the percentage of young people using cigarettes, this is American youth, as the percentage goes up, young people using e-cigarettes, the actual smoking prevalence is actually coming down, not going up. So there's indirect evidence, but in summary, I think there is not strong evidence that young people who start e-cigarettes will eventually become smokers. My final point is about international guidance. And this is the World Health Organization in Geneva. And the World Health Organization, through the Framework Convention on Tobacco Control, provides guidance to countries about the use of various products for tobacco control. Unfortunately, for smoke-free products such as e-cigarettes or heated tobacco products, the position of the WHO is a little bit negative. It is not very supportive of using these products as ways to control the smoking epidemic globally. So there is a strong need for the WHO to update the provisions and the priorities of this framework convention on tobacco control to acknowledge the scientific evidence which point to the potential benefits of smoke-free products. And the way this can happen is, as some of you may know, is through the Conference of Parties. The next meeting has been postponed because of COVID to November 2021, but I'm hoping that there will be a change in the position of the WHO to be more supportive for SFPs. Now, you can ask the question, why is WHO so important? It is very important because many countries, especially developing countries, look to WHO to guide them in producing their own regulations. So if WHO takes a negative stand towards SFPs, many countries will just say, this is what WHO says, we will follow. So WHO is very influential. And as Roberto Sussman said, health bureaucrats and regulators in Latin America look at the WHO and the US FDA like Catholic priests look at the Vatican, or like old-time communist parties looked at the Politburo of the Soviet Union. Okay, just to underscore the importance of the WHO. So in conclusion, informed by science and evidence, I believe that regulations for smoke-free products should be, one, proportionate to risk and be able to address this misperception of risk that I mentioned. Two, to permit affordable and equitable access to those who want to quit smoking. In Indonesia, in the Philippines, the majority of smokers are people from the lower income groups. So you have to have regulations that make it affordable and accessible to these people. Three, you must consider the broader public health impacts. Remember that the health risk of smoking in the context of non-communicable diseases, heart disease, lung cancer, diabetes, stroke, is very, very considerable in terms of economic cost, in terms of cost to the healthcare system. So the regulations must look into the broader public health impact. Four, given the continuing concern, regulations must also restrict the access to these products to young people, perhaps set a limit of 18 years, just as you would in many countries for cigarettes. And finally, I think regulations should also, in the context of WHO, influence international guidelines. So WHO's guidelines through the FCTC must also be informed by science and evidence. Finally, I would say that there is still quite a lot of confusion, quite a lot of uncertainty, even a lot of fear in many of the countries when it comes to developing such regulations. But as Tim Ferriss said, what we fear doing most is usually what we most need to do. And in the context of controlling smoking globally, we really need to use science and evidence to develop the right kind of regulations. Thank you very much.